In this tutorial, we will learn how to work with the Cinematic Titles pack in Adobe After Effects. We'll go through the pack together and create both simple and complex titles through 3 different examples that vary in difficulty, showing you all that is possible with this pack. In Animation Composer, open the Cinematic Titles folder and choose a title you like. We'll go with this one. Click the Add button to add this title to your timeline. Now, let's move on to the customization settings. We can start by changing the scale options for all 3 text layers. While we're at it, we could also adjust the position. After that, we can play around a bit with the skewing of the title. And we can also change the tracking for each text layer individually. Change the colors of each text layer. And of course, the text itself. How about we bring in some footage to see how this new title will look in action? Let's also scale down the title slightly so that it fits nicely into our footage. Perfect, ready to be shown on the big screen. But what if you wanted to create something a bit more complex? Well, you can combine multiple titles together and customize them so they all feel unified. Let's go ahead and do that. The first thing we'll want to do is change the font of our imported title. In the current version of After Effects, this requires a bit of extra effort. Start by opening up the imported composition and select the text layer inside. After that, go to the character window and select a font. We'll go with Georgia. Now we can get to the customization options. Start by changing the text and adjust the duration as well. Change the color and disable the glow too, as it doesn't really fit the style we are going for. We also want the title to remain static, so let's disable the continuous animation. While we're at it, we can also slow down the in animation or disable the in and out animations altogether, but we will keep them enabled for now. To make the title a bit more unique, we can add another instance of it on top, duplicate the title we just made, move it above our previous one, create a mask around it, and randomize the in and out animation slightly, so that the animation looks different. Looks good, but we can make this even better. Add another title that will act as a launch date for our fictitious merch drop. Position it under our main merch drop title. And customize it again. This time we'll change the scaling speed as well, so that the title scales up a bit faster. It's getting there, but there's a lot of flickering on this title that doesn't fit the scene. But don't worry, we can change the amount of flickering and even randomize it a bit as well. Much better now. If we wanted to, we could turn off flickering altogether by setting the speed down to 0. However, we'll want to keep it enabled this time around. Next, scale down the title to match our scene. Let's also add a small coming soon text on top. We can do this by simply duplicating the title we just made. Position it at the top. Change the text. And turn off the continuous animation. Perfect. Now all we need is a nice looking call to action text. So let's import one of these fractal titles. After importing the title, isolate the layer. Change the font again, this time to Enter. And customize the title. Scale down the title slightly so we can see our changes better. Change the color, the in animation speed, and turn off the continuous animation. With these fractal titles, we can also choose what type of reveal animation we want and adjust almost every aspect of them with these controls. For the reveal animation, you can adjust the intensity, complexity, random seed, noise scale, with these customization options also applying for the fog controls. Great. Now we just need to scale it down a bit more, change the duration, position it to the bottom, and de-isolate the layer. Amazing. We can now post this on our socials and start building hype around our totally real upcoming merch drop. If you want to add even more detail and have an even more complex and unique looking title, you can use textures and other assets from our library to make those titles just that tiny bit better. Once again, import a title. We'll be using this deformation 1 that's center aligned. Looks great already, but let's make it unique. Start by changing the font once more, then change the text. Then move on to the scale controls. We'll set both of the text layers to 200. Adjust the line distance and tracking. Give the title a slight slant and move on to the animation settings. Here, we'll adjust the animation speed, distortion size, and the Z position of the in animation. Let's disable the continuous animation as well. Next, change the color of both text layers. Scale the text so that it fills up the screen. And move it down so it's in the center of our composition. Perfect. Now onto the fun part, textures. There are a lot of different textures to choose from in our library, but we'll go with this brush texture and use it as a mask for our title. All we need to do is set the duration of the texture to 5 seconds and set our title's track matte to this texture. Make sure you invert the matte. It looks good, but it's a bit hard to see. Duplicate the title once for better visibility, then duplicate it again. We'll use this second duplicate as a color offset for the title, but first, let's import a new texture. Let's go with this fast grunge one. For this texture, set the duration to 5 seconds. Now mask the second duplicate to this new texture we just added, but do not invert it this time. Select the duplicate, change the color for text 1 and text 2, and then set the duplicate layer's opacity to 30%. It's getting there. Now, add a white version of this title that will act as the main element in our scene. The scale character animation will work best here. We'll go with this one. We'll be making similar customizations to this title as we did to the other ones, but the animation will be different. You know the drill by now. Change the font. Change the text to Slam Dunk Show. Set the scale of the first 2 text layers to 200 and the third one to 70. Adjust the line distance and tracking. Change color to white. Adjust both the in and continuous animation speeds. And let's also scale up and reposition the title. Once we have the new title ready, we need to set the track matte of this new title to brush sequence 1. Perfect. The title's done now, but we can still add a bit of detail to the whole scene to make it stand out more. What we can do is put a different grunge texture on top of the whole scene here. We will go with this slow grunge one. Set the duration to 5 seconds. Select the texture layer in the timeline and set the opacity to 32%. The very last step here is to make the animation have a smoother loop. Add a light leak from our library that we will use as a noise-like transition. Let's go with this organic light leak here. Set the track matte of the light leak to Fast Grunge 1. Align the cut marker with the end of the animation and move it slightly further. Duplicate it. Align the cut marker of this duplicated light leak to the start of the animation and move it slightly back. And with that, everything's done. We now have a texture-rich scene with a modern, grungy title. Now that you know how to use these titles and our library as a whole, you can go out there and create something you'll be proud of. Get this at MrHorse.com.